Welcome to Ranting and Raving. This will be another Saints episode. I haven't posted in a while because there hasn't been a lot to talk about, but more importantly, I had COVID and it was hard to talk. And it's kind of hard to record videos when you can't talk without attempting to hack up a lung. I'm slightly exaggerating, but really not much. It really sucked. Thank God for vaccines. But that said, we're gonna take a look here. We're just about 2 weeks ahead of training camp. So for me, going into training camp and really, throughout training camp and throughout the preseason, I think there are five stories or storylines that I'm really going to be keeping an eye on, and I think these are really going to have a huge impact on the 2022-2023 season. So these are the five things that I want to keep an eye on all the way throughout. And I think if these five things go well, obviously there's other factors, health, just in general for the roster, being the most important. But if these five things work out in the Saints' favor, then I fully expect them to be a playoff team, if not a contender. And if most of them don't, then my expectations are a little bit lower than that. So obviously all the YouTube stuff. If you enjoy the content, subscribe, hit the little bell, comment. I love when people comment. I always try to engage and respond back to things, even if you disagree with me. As long as someone isn't in the comments being a jackass, then I'm not gonna respond like a jackass. If you disagree, that's fine. Like, that's actually half the fun. Half the fun of doing content is engaging in conversations and creating conversations. So feel free to comment. Always appreciate that. Love the engagement. And with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So I am going to do these in order of importance, at least for me personally. So the number one storyline for the Saints, without question, it is the single most impactful thing that is going to play out throughout training camp and throughout the preseason, and I think it's going to have the single largest impact on the Saints' potential to be a team that makes some noise this season, and by the end of the season could be a dangerous team, and that is Michael Thomas's health. You don't have to question his work ethic. You don't question his capabilities, his physicality, his route running, his dedication. Pick your superlative. He hits them all. You don't have to question any of those things. But Mike's health is a major concern. And even, we're now seeing videos. We're seeing videos of him jumping and then running in a straight line. And now he's starting to do routes. But he's rounding them off. But he still has time, between when that was posted and when training camp happens and preseason and then the regular season. But what makes Michael Thomas, not just what makes him special, but what makes him effective. Mike's not a fast receiver, never has been. He's a very physical receiver. He's got great hands. He runs excellent routes. But his ability to cut violently, to plant his foot and have an instantaneous burst and change direction and compromise defensive backs by doing so, that's his key to success. And if he can be 80% of the guy that he once was, he's at least Anquan Boldin. And that's a compliment. Really, go back and check Anquan Boldin's career. Even Anquan Boldin, by the time that he got to, when he was in San Francisco or when he was on the Ravens for those years, go back and take a look. Damn good player. Not a superstar, not a number one, but a damn good player. And a guy that had a major impact on winning and was highly reliable. If Michael Thomas can be that player, forget Offensive Player of the Year, forget one of the 5 or 6 best wide receivers in football, forget all of that. Take that off the table for now. If he can just be a close approximation of what Anquan Boldin provided, it's a win. It's a huge win. And even if just with that level of production, with his leadership and his tenacity, he would be slightly overpaid, but he wouldn't be massively overpaid, especially with the rest of the roster around him. And especially on his ability to really, if he can be that player, that gives him the ability to cover Jameis's greatest area of weakness, which is inconsistency and keeping the chains going. Jameis is a rhythm quarterback, always has been. This is where a huge part of his inconsistencies come from. When he gets rolling, chains together 4, 5, 6, 7 good plays in a row, he can look spectacular. He can really lace it. He can thread the needle. He can really put up a lot of points really fast. And we all know he can make the big throws. But when his feet get bad, when he gets under pressure, when he's not in a good rhythm, he can struggle and he can be off target. And it's why I was so excited about the Jarvis Landry signing, because his ability to catch off target passes, to catch passes outside of his general expected catch radius, to go outside of his frame, those passes are going to happen. His ability to do that helps, but Mike in particular, the ultimate possession receiver, to keep the chains moving, to help build that rhythm, to build that confidence, to be the safety blanket, makes all of the other personnel moves work. If he can't at least be 80% of what he was, it's not that the season is doomed. That's why you have Jarvis. Jarvis is a really good player. I think actually will pair well with Mike, provided that he's healthy and not just on the decline, which I believe he isn't. But it's not the same, and you want to have both, and not having Mike able to be at least a facsimile of himself, it would have a serious negative impact on the potential of this team. And their potential is as high as they want it to be. If everything breaks right, this team could win the Super Bowl. They're not the favorite. It's not a bet that I would make, because you need everything to break right, especially the 5 things that we're going to talk about. So let's talk about number 2. So outside of Michael Thomas's health, the thing that I will be looking for, especially in the preseason games where I can actually watch it and take a look and really see it, but even in particular all the way throughout training camp, is Trevor Penning's development. So Trevor Penning has the reputation, and it's earned, of being kind of a raw prospect. He's as thoroughbred as they come from a physical standpoint. Great, athlete as far as a guy with the ability to move, excellent strength, good body balance, fluidity, good hands, strong, plays aggressively, sometimes too much so, but like Dennis Allen said, I would rather have to pull a guy back than kick him in the ass. And so his development, if he, by the end of training camp and throughout the preseason games, is at least starting to challenge James Hurst for starting left tackle position, even if he doesn't win it, if it takes him a few weeks into the season, like that's fine. James Hurst is an acceptable starter. He's not great. He's not necessarily even good, but he's an acceptable starter. He's not going to get your quarterback killed. More on that in a second. But if he's at least challenging him, then it means he's showing growth. He's showing improvement. He's working with Marone, who's a bit of an offensive line guru. He's working with Streve, who's in particular working with the tackles. He's putting in the work, which was part of his profile, is that this is a hard worker. This is a grinder. This is a kid that cares. If he's doing all of that, then my optimism goes way up. If it's the reverse, it's not that the season is done or that he's a wasted draft pick or he's terrible. Like, 3-year rule is always in effect, except in the case of superstars and busts. That's how it works. Some guys, they're stars right away. Marshawn Lattimore was one. Alvin Kamara was one. Some guys like, oh, that's a stud. There's really no need for further discussion. And some guys are busts. Right now, Cesar Ruiz is a bust. And he's the third storyline. Trevor Penning's development is really important to me. It's the second most interesting and important storyline for camp. But what happens at right guard is the other part of that equation. Either we need to be hearing and seeing about tremendous improvement from Cesar Ruiz, because he's got the physical tools, so we're told, but yet trips on air all the time. If he can have that light bulb turn on and get to average, forget being, living up to the first round pick and all of that. Like, That's a moonshot. Like, it could have happened, sure. Is it likely to happen? Not making that bet. But what is happening at right guard? Is he making significant strides to get to an average NFL starter at right guard? And if not, is Landon Young or Calvin Throckmorton starting to take that spot from him? If Cesar Ruiz doesn't look pretty damn good in preseason, I want to see Throckmorton. I think that's the guy to take the job, but it could be Young. But I'm predicting Throckmorton. I want to see him getting first team snaps and by the second or third game. Partially, send a message, kick the guy in the ass, give him one last shot. That's fine. You invested a first round pick in him. I get it. But beyond that, it also needs to show that this team still believes that at the end of the day, you earn your roster spot. Because here's just a fact. Throckmorton was a better guard than Ruiz last year. Period. He was a better player. It wasn't a perfect player, but he was a better player. If he's a better player this year, he needs to play. I don't care where the other guy was drafted. It doesn't matter. They don't have that kind of margin for error, especially if Kamara is suspended early in the season. There goes another one of your safety blankets. There goes arguably your best offensive player, and there also goes by far and away like your only really competent, reliable running back. And you do need to have some semblance of a run game even in today's NFL. And your offensive line is kind of the key to that. Like special players can make special plays, but if you can't make holes, there's only so much guys can do. So right guard is super, super important. And kind of going from there into the fourth storyline for me is the thing that I'm going to be watching all the way throughout. Watching clips and stuff where I can. Obviously, I'm not there. Watching all of preseason, but also looking for reports and looking for everything I can get my hands on for training camp. It's the tight end position, and really, if you think about it, the last three are all about blocking. Penning and his development and the first round pick investment in him and his talent. Right guard Ruiz being a disaster, either stepping his game up or getting replaced, and then the tight ends. Troutman. It's harder to call a third round pick a bust than it is a first round pick, but he's kind of a bust. Like Traquan's a bust. He's not good. Like he's a really good run blocker, but unless he actually turns into a useful wide receiver, which he's yet to do, he's a bust. Troutman, this is his year to decide whether or not he's a bust or not. This or not. This is year 3. 3-year rule. Can he be Josh Hill? Can he be a good blocker? Can he be a guy who occasionally catches passes? He's solid once he gets in space with the ball in his hands. He actually can do some things. He just hasn't shown the ability to get open at all or to consistently catch the ball when it's thrown to him. And then on the other side of the spectrum, there's another guy at the tight end position that I'm really interested about, and that's Lucas Krull. Besides just having an awesome last name, he has some really interesting physical attributes. You just look at his size, his build, the way his body is structured, the way it's balanced. He's built the way you want a tight end to be built, but he also he moves incredibly well. And again, for someone his size, he's very, very interesting. And what I'm really hoping to see is him lighting up camp and making plays, and then going into the preseason and making plays. And tight end is arguably, I'm not saying definitively it is, but it is arguably the hardest position to transfer from college to the NFL. A lot of times it takes time. So am I expecting him to just burst onto the scene and catch 600 to 800 yards? No. But if he can make some plays and make some noise, and especially as the season goes along, make noise in the red zone, convert some third downs, start to get into his own, and then by the end of the year actually become a fairly consistent contributor, it's a spectacular season for an undrafted free agent. But that starts in training camp. So that's what I want to watch. And then the last thing that I'm going to be keeping an eye on, and this is so consistent. Um, I'm just calling them the First brothers at this point. We got two first. We've got who first, which is Marcus Davenport and God, I can't even remember the other kid's name. He hasn't played any snaps. I wish I was doing that to be funny, but I actually have completely brain farted his name. Peyton Turner. There it is. Hard for me to remember your name when you've never actually done anything on the field. A couple good snaps against Carolina and then nada. And then, obviously, he had a shoulder issue. He had surgery. I'm not shitting on the kid for having surgery. If he goes into training camp and he's fine, great. That's his job. Like, you're supposed to be ready by training camp. If you are, then it doesn't matter if he, wasn't ready before. He's ready now. Let's go. But if the injuries are still lingering, for him and for Davenport through training camp and then going into preseason, the Saints really need at least one of those guys to be available and productive every game, preferably both. And if you can't get that, it has a huge impact on the defense. The secondary just lost their safety blanket. The new safety tandem may result in better playmaking, but it's likely to also give up more big plays. Marcus Williams is the best, my opinion, is the best get out of jail free card for corners in the NFL. It had been on the Saints for the last several years. And a lot of plays that fans were mad at him about were like, oh, he took a bad angle or he missed a tackle, or plays that most other safeties in the league wouldn't have been on camera for. You're mad at him for almost making a miraculous play instead of being, impressed that he almost made a miraculous play. Not that, he wasn't, perfect. He wasn't the greatest tackler. We're not trying to pretend like he was Ed Reed, but he covered up a lot, and he gave you the ability to be aggressive and do a lot on defense because he kind of erased everything deep down the field. Neither of the safeties that we have that skill set at all. Tyrann never has, but definitely doesn't at this point in his career. And they have other skills. And we're going to be a much more interchangeable defense. I think they're going to be a very aggressive defense. I think they're really going to try to take the ball away. I think they're probably going to have a lot of success with that. But a huge part of that assumption is that they're going to have a pass rush. And Cam Jordan isn't going to be able to do it on his own. You could argue he never really has been able to do it entirely on his own, but at his peak, he didn't have a ton of help. But he's getting older, and he's had injuries, and he's got a lot of wear and tear, and he needs freaking help. So one of the First brothers needs to be on the field and producing. And if one or both of them can do that, again, like I said with all of these other items, if all of these things work out, if Michael Thomas is at least, the Anquan Bolden version of himself, if Trevor Penning is the starter by the end of the year and it's for a good reason because he won the spot and he's producing and he's helpful and he's valuable, if they figure out right guard and at least get it to average instead of horrible, if tight end, whether it's, Finding Nemo, Troutman, or Lucas Kroll showing flashes or preferably both, like doing some things and just not having it be a complete dumpster fire graveyard as far as a production position, and then finally, again, the First brother's health. Like that's really, those 5 things are what I'll be paying the most attention to. I'll be watching every Chris Olave highlight and big throw by Jameis and things like that, both in the preseason and from training camp, and those will all be fun. And if Abram Smith is doing cool things, awesome. I think he will, but we'll see. But if these 5 things don't work out, I think it has a lot bigger effect on the team than just about anything else. Obviously, barring major injuries to important players. But these are my 5. Again, hope you enjoyed the update. I'm happy to be back. We'll have more content here coming over the next few days. As always, a mix between just random topics and things that I like to have fun with and that I find interesting. Especially during this time of the year, lots of top 10 lists, top 5 lists. This thing that I like, that thing that I like, why this thing's dumb. if you have things that you'd like to hear me yammer on about and rant and rave about, feel free to again go into the comments and make suggestions. I'll even do reaction videos if you guys are interested in them. But you know, the whole point of making content is to create engagement and have fun. So if you tell me what you want to see, then if I can do it, I'll do it. Appreciate you guys listening. As always, like, comment, subscribe if you enjoy it, and even if you don't enjoy it, like, comment, subscribe so you can continuously tell me how much I suck. I'm gonna keep doing that joke because I think it's funny. I don't care. Hope you guys appreciated it, and we'll talk to you later.